Send help. I don't really know why I started this 24-hour Inktober challenge, but here we go. First prompt is crystals, so I thought I would do these crystals that were growing out of a rock and then giving it a really dark background. I'm just using my Micron graphic pens for this one, and I'm using a mixture of cross hatching and also some stippling for this one. And then I'm also going to actually use a really old Indian ink that I've got for the background so that this piece really stands out and the focus is on the crystals. I just use a brush for my Indian ink and then I try and fade that in a little bit to leave a little bit of a white gap between my crystal and the background, and overall I'm really happy with this first one. Second prompt is suit, and for this one I thought I would do a suit of armor because I just thought that would be really quite fun to show and try something different. I don't usually draw anything like this in this style, and I think that's the good thing about challenges like Inktober. You can really go out of your comfort zone with different ideas and styles. So yeah, I just thought I'd go for a suit of armor for this one. The third prompt for Inktober this year is Vessel, so I thought I would go for a little pot of potion or a little jar of poison, and I thought it would be in keeping with that suit of armor, sort of thinking of medieval themes, and I'm quite pleased with the outcome of this one. It's just a really simple little illustration that I'm quite pleased with. For this idea for Knot, I was thinking of creating something for my best friend. She absolutely loves crocheting, so I have added this one in here for her. I've created a little ball of wool. I really enjoyed how this one has used a form, so thinking about the darker shadows for the inner part of the ball of wool and then making sure the outer parts of the wool are a lot lighter in tone, and I just had a lot of fun creating this one. It did actually take quite a long time to create this little illustration because of all of the different tonal values, I guess, but I'm really pleased with it overall. For Raven, I couldn't not create a bird, so I've put it within this circular frame for the composition. I thought it would work really well against that ball of wool, and then I'm just using a brush pen to fill it in to try and get a nice feather effect, and I think that this one has worked quite well. I'm not huge on drawing birds, so this one was a bit more of a challenge for me. I quite enjoy using the method where you leave some of the page as is. It gives a slight print or block print effect, which I think is quite effective. I recently watched E.T., so I was really inspired by the scene where they dress E.T. up as a ghost, but I also really wanted to include some baggy jeans underneath the ghost costume and a little pair of red Converse trainers, and I think this is one of my favourite pieces that I've created so far in this Inktober series. I just think it's so simple but really quite sweet at the same time, so I really did enjoy creating this one. Let me know in the comments if you are currently working on Inktober, and also make sure you like and subscribe. I took quite a while to actually decide what I wanted to create for Fan, and in the end I went for this quite ornate looking handheld fan, and I'm going to attempt to block in most of it with a brush pen but leave out the design on the inside just as plain paper. So I've gone for a design on this one that also is a little bit creepy. I thought it would tie in quite well with the ghost, so I've got some branches that are kind of holding almost the moon, so so they kind of frame that quite nicely. And I think that this is going to turn out actually quite well for a design that I wasn't too sure on to begin with. I feel like I'm going to be quite pleased with this outcome. I did find some really good inspirational ideas on Google, and I did go for one of them and use that as my main inspiration. For watch, I wanted to go for something a little bit less obvious than sort of a wristwatch, so I've gone for a surveillance camera, thinking about always being watched. So this one is just a really simple, quick design, especially as I was trying to do this in 24 hours, so I did have to speed up on a few of my ideas. Next up is Pressure, and for this one I was thinking of a bottle of Prosecco when you first pop that cork and the first bit of Prosecco just comes bubbling out of the bottle, and also thinking about sort of like celebrations and things like that. So I thought this one would be a really fun design. I've used a mixture of fine liner pens for this one and a brush pen, and I'm also going to add a little bit of stippling on the bottle to try and get a bit of tonal value on there as well. I was feeling quite tired at this point and thinking about what I could do quite quickly and easily, so I've gone for a guitar pick for Pick, and just thinking about blocking in the blacks and the whites for a really simple design for a guitar pick. For Sour, I've gone for 2 lemons, one sliced open and one behind, also with a leaf in the background, and I'm keeping this one quite simple, just with a little bit of stippling and a bit of cross hatching, and finishing off with brush pen as well. For Stuck, I was thinking about a little kitten that had found its way up a tree and then couldn't make its way back down again, and just the terror on its face, and it's also a little bit smudged there where it's clinging on so tightly to the branch, and I just thought this would be a really funny little illustration to create, so this is the one for Stuck. For Tick, I was thinking about time and decided that I wanted to go for an hourglass, so just thinking about all of that sand passing through time, and I used a stippling effect on this one to create the texture of the sand. So you may have noticed that I was probably a bit tired at this point, and Roof should actually go before Tick, but I've included it in the order that I have drawn it rather than the Inktober prompt list. But for this one I was just thinking about a really nice way to frame a building, so creating this archwork here using some hatching skills, and then I'm also going to incorporate a bit of red. So I think this is the first bit of colour that I've actually used for Inktober so far, and I think it works quite well against the black, but it does stand out very, very brightly against the rest of the drawings on this page. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. For this one, I was thinking about astronauts for Helmet, and I've created this little illustration of an astronaut wearing their full suit as though they're going on a spacewalk, and I'm using my black brush pen to just fill in any of the dark tones, and I'm really pleased with this little illustration. I have never ever been interested in actually going to space. The thought of it actually terrifies me. For Compass, I'm going to create just a neat little compass using my ruler to ensure that everything is straight and neat, and then I'm going to fill it in with my brush pen again, and I think that this will actually work really well against the astronaut on this page. I can imagine either of these designs making quite a cool tattoo. What do you think? So for Moon, I have simply gone for different phases of the moon, and I'm then filling in with my Indian ink in the background and creating a really stark background against those moons, and then I'm going to fill in the textures on the top of the moon to give it the surface effect. I'm really pleased with this page. I think it looks so good. So for Collide, I was thinking of explosions and I created this. It reminds me of a Roy Lichtenstein painting, which I am quite a fan of. So I really did enjoy doing this piece. It has a real pop art vibe to it. And I think if I had have added some colour in there as well, it would have enhanced it even more. So maybe if I was to do this again, I would add some primary colours into it. Let me know what ideas you've gone for in your Inktober, if they are similar to mine, or have you gone for completely different ideas? Let me know in the comments. So for Sprout, I was just thinking of a little seedling sprouting out and then just adding a little bit of hatching to it as well. So it's a really simple little one for Sprout, which was handy for time because obviously I was trying to do this all within a day and I needed to do a few that were quite quick. So for Loop, I thought I would incorporate a bit more colour again, and I've created a little bowl of Fruit Loops floating around the last remaining part of the cereal bowl with the milk and a spoon in there as well. And I think that the pastel colours work really well against that stark black, and I just really enjoyed creating this piece. I think it's so simple, yeah, it works really, really well for Loop. Fuzzy, I was thinking about this little ball of fuzz, sort of like a weird little creature with these enormous eyes, maybe a little bit like a bush baby or something. I'm not entirely sure what I was going for here, but I knew I just wanted it to be a little ball of fur, maybe like a Furby or something. I'm not entirely sure, but the overall effect was just quite cute, I suppose, with these massive eyes within a fur ball. Next up is Open, and I was thinking about speeding up my designs a little bit because I was really lagging at this point, so I've just got an open letter and added a little bit of hatching onto it as well so that it is defined slightly. Next up is Leak, and I've gone for a little pot that's boiling over and leaking out the content within the pot. And it gives me such anxiety when this happens in real life, it's not even funny. For Extinct, I was thinking about the dodo, and I created the drawing of the dodo and then it X-ray, I suppose, on the inside, so the skeleton of the dodo. And I used one of my coloured pens for this because I didn't want to go for just a black, although I think the black would have worked quite well, and then I could have added in some details on the bones, but I quite like this one. For Splat, I wanted to keep this quite tongue-in-cheek, so I have got a ice cream. As you know, I love drawing food, so I've got a little ice cream, and unfortunately one of them has fallen off and it's gone splat on the ground. With Connect, I decided to go for a really old school flip phone. Let me know in the comments if you had a flip phone like this one back in the day. But I just thought this one would be a really fun way to show Connect because, you know, how we connect with one another is quite different to how we used to connect. And I just thought this one would be quite a nice throwback piece in the Inktober series for Connect. For Sparkle, I've gone for a sparkler, and again this one reminds me of a real pop art style piece because of the shape within the sparkler area. It doesn't necessarily look all that much like a sparkler, but I'm quite pleased with the overall piece in this one, and I liked the brushwork on this as well, filling in around the actual sparkler itself. So not amazing, but I quite like it. I've gone for a crispy bacon for this one, and again it's just a really simple little drawing because I just needed to quicken up my pace a little bit with some of my work. So I've got this crispy little bacon toast and a frying pan, and I just think it's a cute little illustration, really. At this point, the end was in sight, and I was so relieved that I was almost finished. So for patch, I've gone for this pirate skeleton wearing a patch. It kind of looks like this skeleton is shrinking or is really wrinkly. It's quite weird, but I think it works quite well for Halloween, I guess. And I just used my brush pen for this one to fill it in with a larger, thicker brush stroke to do it quite quickly. For Slither, I went for a snake. I couldn't really think of anything else to go for Slither, so I've gone for a snake, and I filled this in with a real sort of like sketchy style. I wanted this one to be a little bit more loose, more like a sketch that I might just create for fun in my sketchbook when I'm just coming up with a few loose ideas, and I'm quite pleased with it. I think that it looks quite sweet actually, and it's just a nice little drawing. And last but not least, for Risk, I have gone for a tightrope walker, and I'm going for a continuous line drawing with this one because I do really enjoy the look of continuous line drawings, and I thought this would work really, really well. So somebody trying to catch their balance as they are walking the rope. And then these are all of my ideas put together. You can see through my sketchbook how I have developed from the very first idea of Crystal for Inktober all the way to the very last one of the Risk. And I'm really pleased that I challenged myself to do this within 24 hours. I made it! I got all the way through the 31 prompts of Inktober. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up, and I will see you next week. Bye guys.